Imagine standing in Alexandria 30 BCE, the air thick with salt and ambition. You weave through crowded markets, donkey carts clattering as Cleopatra VII, last pharaoh of Egypt, rules from her palace of polished stone. Her world hums merchants' hawkfish. Scribes clutch papyrus, and the Nile's muddy pulse feeds the city. Yet here's the kicker. This moment, this glittering rain is closer to astronauts planting a flag on the moon in 1969 than to the Great Pyramid stone settling into place around 2550 BCE. Time's playing a cruel prank and you're caught in its dizzying jest. You pause by the harbour where the Pharos lighthouse looms its fire, slicing the night like a blade. Cleopatra's court buzzes with Greek poets, Roman envoys and astronomers squinting at star-choked skies. She's no distant myth. She's a woman of flesh and cunning, her voice sharp as the asp she'll soon embrace. You smell jasmine and sweat, hear the clink of gold as she negotiates with Rome's wolves. But the pyramids, they're already ancient, their builders' dust for 2 millennia. You'd need a time machine to reach them, but to reach Neil Armstrong's lunar stroll, just a long, strange nap. This temporal vertigo hits hard. The Great Pyramid, that hulking mass of stone, was old when Cleopatra was born, older than her entire world of scrolls and sails. Yet her era, with its incense-heavy rituals and political knife fights, feels closer to your smartphone's glow than to those desert tombs. Picture her coal-lined eyes glinting, plotting with Caesar, while the moon looms large. If she'd had Wi-Fi, she'd have tweeted about it, hashtag moon goals. Instead, her scholars scribbled on papyrus, dreaming of stars they couldn't touch, while NASA's rockets would one day burn through the heavens. You wander Alexandria's streets, dodging dung and hawk as the city alive with a cosmopolitan thrum. Greek, Egyptian, Jewish, Persian cultures clash and blend like a proto-United Nations. Cleopatra's no mere queen. She's a diplomat, a scholar, a gambler, betting her throne on Rome's whims. The Library of Alexandria, that brain of the ancient world, hums nearby its scrolls stuffed with math and mysticism. You can almost hear the astronomers muttering, the moon's closer than we think. And they're right. 2,000 years later, Armstrong's boot crunches lunar dust while the pyramids sit silent, mocking time's rush. This is history's sleight of hand. You're in Cleopatra's shadow, her world vibrant yet doomed, and the moon landing feels like tomorrow's news. The pyramids, they're a distant echo, their stones heavy with 500 years of silence by her time. You taste the Nile's gritty silt, feel the heat of a city that doesn't know it's closer to satellites than to its own ancient wonders. Cleopatra's plotting, loving, dying, all while the stars align for a future she'll never see. Time's a trickster, and you're stuck in its maze wondering if she'd have begged for a ride on Apollo 11, her laughter echoing across millennia. Step into the desert 2550 BCE, where the Great Pyramid of Giza rises a colossus of sweat and stone. You squint against the sun, its glare bouncing off limestone polished to a blinding sheen. Labourers, thousands strong, haul blocks heavier than your nightmares, their backs scarred, their chants swallowed by sand. By Cleopatra's time, 30 BCE, these pyramids are already ghosts. 500 years old, their builders long crumbled to dust. Yet they loom silent and smug, closer to her than she is to the moon landing's grainy broadcast in 1969. You stand before the Great Pyramid, its peak piercing the sky like a dagger. Workers driven by devotional whips drag stones up, ramps slick with sweat. The air smells of grit and desperation, the Nile's distant shimmer their only reprieve. Pharaoh Khufu's tomb is a cosmic gamble meant to hurl his soul to the stars. Fast forward to Cleopatra, and these stones are ancient relics, their purpose half forgotten, their chambers plundered or sealed. You wonder, did she gaze at them, these hulking ancestors, and feel time's weight crushing her own fleeting reign? The pyramids don't care, they sit immovable while empires rise and fall. By Cleopatra's day, they're tourist traps for Greek poets and Roman generals, their mystique as thick as the desert heat. You trace a finger along weathered limestone, feeling centuries in its cracks. The Sphinx half-buried stares with eyes that mock your brief existence. It's 30 BCE and Alexandria is alive with intrigue, but these stones, They've seen dynasties die, floods rage, and still they stand older than Cleopatra's world, older than her dreams of Rome. Now picture 1969. You're glued to a flickering TV watching Armstrong's boots sink into lunar dust. The pyramids still squatting in Giza are 400-500 years old ancient, when Cleopatra schemed ancient now as rockets soar. Time's playing dirty, making Cleopatra's cold streak drama closer to this lunar leap than to the pyramid's birth. You imagine her if she could see it laughing at the absurdity a queen outlived by stones outpaced by astronauts. The desert wind howls, carrying sand that stings like time's cruel joke. This is the pyramid's power. They endure silent witnesses to humanity's scrabble for eternity. In 2550 BCE labourers died for Khufu's glory. In 30 BCE, Cleopatra walked past their shadow, her own end near. You feel the sand in your throat, the weight of millennia pressing down. The moon landing a mere 2,000 years from her feels like a cosmic taunt. These stones don't speak, but they mock your life, her reign, all fleeting against their unyielding bulk. History's a maze, and the pyramids are its oldest trap, daring you to measure time's dizzying span. You're in Alexandria, Torah, 40 BCE, standing in the shadow of the Great Library, its marble walls glowing under a star-drenched sky. The air hums with the scratch of quills, the mutter of scholars, and the faint tang of incense curling through the halls. Cleopatra, patron of this ancient think tank, funds astronomers who squint at papyrus star charts, plotting the heavens with tools cruder than a kid's telescope. Yet here's the gut punch: their cosmic dreams, scribbled in a city of sails and intrigue, are closer to Apollo 11's lunar touchdown in 1969 than to the Great Pyramid's birth in 2550 BCE. Time's a cosmic prank, and you're staring at its punchline. Step inside the library, where scrolls pile like a hoarder's fever dream. You dodge a bearded scholar, his fingers ink-stained, muttering about Venus's path. These are the geeks of the ancient world, think NASA, but with togas and no Wi-Fi. They measure stars with ropes and bronze, chasing truths Cleopatra bankrolls to keep her court dazzling. You feel the weight of their ambition, the papyrus crinkling like whispers of the future. The moon, fat and silver, hangs above, closer to Armstrong's boot than to the pyramid's ancient stones. If these astronomers had a rocket, they'd have raced to it. Cleopatra's no mere queen here. She's the venture capitalist of antiquity, her gold fueling minds that map the cosmos. You catch a whiff of myrrh, hear the clatter of abacuses as scholars debate orbits. The library's a buzzing hive, its halls alive with Greek, Egyptian and Persian voices, all chasing the stars' secrets. But the pyramids, their relics 500 years old, squatting in Giza's sands while Alexandria dreams of the heavens. You imagine Cleopatra glancing skyward, her coal-lined eyes narrowing. Did she sense the moon was closer than her ancestors' tombs? Now fast forward to 1969. You're hunched over a grainy TV watching Apollo 11's lunar module kiss the moon's surface. Those ancient astronomers long dust would have wept at the sight humanity's boots on their starry obsession. Cleopatra's era, with its scroll-stuffed library, was only 2,000 years from this leap, while the pyramids were a distant 400-500. You smell the library's musty air, feel the desert's heat, and marvel at time's sleight of hand. These scholars scribbling under lamplight were closer to satellites than to Khufu's stone-lifting grunts. The stars don't care about your vertigo. You stand in Alexandria, the moon mocking you with its nearness. The library's astronomers, backed by Cleopatra's cunning chase celestial truths with tools laughably primitive. Yet their dreams echo in NASA's clean rooms, where engineers plot lunar orbits with slide rules. You hear a scholar mutter about Ra's chariot, and you smirk, replace it with Apollo's capsule, and the gap shrinks. Time's a trickster, tying Cleopatra's starry-eyed court to a future of rocket fire, leaving the pyramids to sulk in their ancient silence. Like Cher, tell us what's the weirdest historical fact bending your brain. You're in Cleopatra's palace, 48 BCE, the air heavy with incense and betrayal. The queen draped in silk eyes Julius Caesar across a table glittering with gold. You hear the clink of wine cups, the hiss of a nearby asp, and feel the tension. Her throne's a tightrope, Rome's wolves circling. She's playing a high-stakes game, seducing power itself, while the moon looms closer than the Great Pyramid's ancient stones. Time's laughing. Cleopatra's schemes, her whispered deals, are nearer to 1969's lunar triumph than to Giza's 2550 BCE birth. You lean closer, catching her voice sharp as obsidian weaving charm and strategy. Caesar's no fool, but he's hooked her with her wealth, her Nile-fed empire. Alexandria pulses outside its markets, alive with Greek chatter and Egyptian chants. You taste the wine bitter with the threat of poison. One wrong move, and she's done. The pyramids. 500 years old, squat in the desert relics of a world she barely knows. But the moon. It's a mere 2,000 years from Armstrong's small step, a cosmic taunt to her mortal gambit. Cleopatra's not just a queen, she's a chess master moving Rome's generals like pawns. You feel the palace's heat, the weight of her gaze as she bets Egypt's future on Caesar's favour. The Nile laps nearby, its muddy heartbeat steady while Rome's legions loom. Those pyramids, ancient even now, were old news to her, their builders' names dust. Yet her world's scheming, vibrant, treacherous feels closer to a rocket's roar than to those silent stones. You smirk. If she'd had a smartphone, she'd have texted Caesar selfies with #powercouple. The stakes climb higher. You hear whispers of rivals of Octavian waiting in Rome's wings. Cleopatra's playing for time, for legacy, her every word a calculated risk. The Library of Alexandria. Her intellectual jewel churns out scrolls while she negotiates survival. You imagine her glancing at the stars, unaware that humanity will touch them before her pyramids were even built. The moon landing a blink away in history's warped mirror mocks her fleeting reign with its audacity. Time's a cruel dealer. You stand in her palace, the air thick with plots, and feel the vertigo of history's twist. Cleopatra's closer to astronauts than to Khufu's labourers, her world of intrigue and incense nearer to NASA's clean rooms than to Giza's sand-choked ramps. The pyramids don't care, they've watched empires bleed out. You taste the fear in her wine, see the glint in her eyes, and wonder did she sense time's mockery, her life a bridge between ancient stones and lunar dust. Share your creepiest historical fact. Does it twist time like this? You stand on Alexandria's harbour, 40 BCE, the Pharos lighthouse, towering above its flames, slicing the night like a celestial blade. The air smells of salt and tar ships, creaking as they bob in the Mediterranean's embrace. Cleopatra's city pulses with trade and intrigue, but this beacon, one of the ancient world's wonders, burns brighter than her ambitions. Here's the twist that stings her reign. This glowing marvel is closer to the 1969 moon landing than to the Great Pyramid's birth in 2550 BCE. Time's a jester and you're watching its firelit prank unfold. The Pharos looms a 400-foot giant of stone and ingenuity, its light guiding ships through treacherous waters. You squint at the blazewood and pitch, fueling a glow that mocks the stars. Engineers, Greek and Egyptian, scurry up its ramps, their sweat mingling with the sea's spray. Cleopatra bankrolls this marvel, her gold ensuring its flame never dies. You hear sailors' shouts, feel the heat of the fire, and marvel this beacon's closer to satellites than to the pyramid's ancient stones, already 500 years old in her day. Imagine the lighthouse's keepers, their faces lit by flickering flames, unaware their work prefigures modern audacity. You climb the spiral stairs, lungs burning as the wind howls, like a warning from Anubis. The Pharos isn't just a tower, it's a statement, Alexandria's defiance of the dark, a middle finger to the void. Yet the pyramids, those silent giants in Giza, were old when this lighthouse was built. You smirk. If Cleopatra had Instagram, she'd post this glowing beast with "light up the world" closer to NASA's rockets than to Khufu's dusty dreams. Now picture 1969, the moon glowing on a grainy TV screen as Armstrong steps into history. The Pharos, long crumbled by then, was a spark of human daring, its flame a whisper of the rockets that would pierce the heavens. You stand in Alexandria, the lighthouses glow warm on your face and feel time's dizzying slight. Cleopatra's world, with its firelit ambition, is only 2,000 years from lunar dust, while the pyramids, 400-500 years old, laugh from their desert perch. The lighthouse's flame dances a fleeting rival to the stars it can't touch. This is history's cruel joke. You breathe the harbour's briny air, hear the creak of ships, and sense the Pharos' pulse. a beacon tying Cleopatra's era to a future of spacewalks. The pyramids don't care. They've watched wonders rise and fall. You feel the weight of time, the lighthouse's glow, a fragile spark against eternity's sprawl. Cleopatra's gold kept it burning, but the moon was always closer than the ancient stone she ruled beside. Like Cher, tell us what historical marvel twists your sense of time. You're on a balcony in Alexandria, 35 BCE, the moon hanging fat and silver over the Nile's glassy sheen. Cleopatra stands nearby, her silhouette sharp against the night coal-lined eyes fixed on the sky. The air carries jasmine and the faint hum of priests chanting to Ra, but there's a chill, an eerie whisper like Anubis eyeing the stars. Here's the gut twist. This moment, her gaze on the moon is closer to Apollo 11's lunar landing in 1969 than to the Great Pyramid's rise in 2550 BCE. Time's a serpent coiling history into knots. You feel the night's weight, the moon's glow, casting shadows that dance like Egypt's ancient gods. Cleopatra, queen and scholar, might have mused on the heavens, her library's astronomers mapping stars with papyrus and hope. You hear their murmurs, cosmic theories whispered in Greek-Egyptian myths of Nut swallowing the sun. The moon's closer than you think, not just in the sky, but in time, 2,000 years to Armstrong's boot print, 2,500 to the pyramid's stones. You smirk. If she'd had a rocket, she'd have hitched a ride snapping selfies with hashtag Moon Queen. The city hums below sailors' curse merchants haggle the Pharaoh's lighthouse. Burns like a rival star. You imagine Cleopatra pondering the moon, her mind a labyrinth of power and prophecy. Did she hear Anubis's whisper, sense the gods watching her fleeting reign? The pyramids ancient, even now, squat in Giza's sands, their builders' bones long gone. You taste the Nile's silt, feel the breeze like a warning her world's closer to lunar modules than to those stone ghosts a cosmic taunt. Flash to 1969. You're staring at her. TV Apollo 11's grainy feed showing humanity's leap. Cleopatra's astronomers, dust for centuries, would have screamed at the sight their starry dreams made real. You stand in her Alexandria, the moon's light cold on your skin, and feel time's mockery. Her era with its incense and intrigue is a mere 2,000 years from rockets, while the pyramids, 400-500 years old, loom as silent judges. Anubis hums, his jackal eyes glinting as if he knows the moon's closer than the ancient tombs she rules. This is time's dizzying game. You lean against the balcony, the Nile's ripple a steady pulse, and wonder, did Cleopatra sense the stars pull the future's audacity? Her world, vibrant and doomed, bridges ancient stones and lunar dust, a thread in history's warped tapestry. The pyramids don't flinch. They've seen queens and empires fade. You hear Anubis's whisper, feel the moon's weight, and laugh. Time's a trickster tying Cleopatra's gaze to a rocket's fire. Share your weirdest fact. Does it bend time like this? You're on the banks of the Nile, 45 BCE, the river's muddy pulse lapping at your feet. Alexandria hums in the distance, its markets a chaos of fishmongers and scribes, but here the water's rhythm feels eternal, unbothered by Cleopatra's schemes or Rome's shadow. You taste silt in the air, feel the sun's bite, and dodge a fisherman's net, his curses sharp as papyrus cuts. Here's the twist that jars you. This gritty, vibrant world is closer to the 1969 moon landing than to the Great Pyramid's rise in 2550 BCE. Time's a sly river flowing backward to trick you. The Nile doesn't care about your vertigo. It's fed Egypt for millennia, its floods birthing crops while Cleopatra's court drinks wine and plots. You watch a farmer slog through mud, his hands calloused offering prayers to happy god of the flood. No Wi-Fi, no plumbing, just papyrus prayers and the river's relentless churn. The pyramids, 200-500 years old, loom in Giza, ancient relics. Even now their stones silent while this river carries life. You smirk. If Cleopatra had a smartphone, she'd snap the Nile's flow with eternal vibes closer to rockets than to Khufu's tombs. You wade into the shallows, the water cool but gritty, carrying whispers of 1,000 harvests. Cleopatra's Alexandria thrives on this river. Her grain ships sail to Rome, her power tied to its muddy heart. You hear children laugh, splashing nearby, unaware their world's a bridge to the space age. The moon glowing above is only 2,000 years from Armstrong's dusty boot print, while the pyramids 500 years distant mock your fleeting steps. Time's playing dirty, tying this river's flow to a future of lunar leaps. Flash to 1969. You're glued to a TV Apollo 11's feed, crackling as humanity touches the moon. The Nile's still there, flowing through Egypt's veins, its rhythm unchanged since Cleopatra's day. You imagine her standing here, her gold jewellery glinting, unaware her rivers closer to satellites than to the pyramid's ancient grind. The fishermen, the farmers, the priests, they lived in a world of mud and gods, yet their time feels like yesterday compared to Giza's stones. You laugh histories, a cosmic catfish slipping through your grasp. The Nile keeps flowing indifferent to time's tricks. You feel its current tug, hear the distant Pharos lighthouses flame, crackle. Cleopatra's era, with its muddy vitality, is a mere 2,000 years from NASA's triumph, while the pyramids, eternal and smug, watch from their desert perch. You taste the river's silt, feel its weight and wonder. Did she sense the futures pull the stars? Her scholars chase time's a river, and you're drowning in its strange backward flow. Like Cher, tell us what historical quirk bends your mind like this. You're inside Alexandria's Great Library 40 BCE, the air thick with dust and ambition. Scrolls tower around you, a labyrinth of papyrus stuffed with math, poetry and star charts. Scholars Greek and Egyptian hunch over tables, their quills scratching like insects in the dim lamplight. Cleopatra's gold keeps this brain trust humming. But here's the mind bend. This hub of ancient geekery is closer to the 1969 moon landing than to the Great Pyramid's construction in 2550 BCE. Time's a sandstorm and you're caught in its gritty swirl. You dodge a scholar, his beard flecked with ink, muttering about Euclid's angles. This is the ancient world's Silicon Valley. No Wi-Fi, just scrolls and sweaty debates. Cleopatra's patronage fuels it her cunning, ensuring Alexandria outshines Rome's brute power. You smell parchment and myrrh, or hear the rustle of papyrus like whispers of the future. The pyramids do it. 500 years old, squat in Giza's sands, relics of a forgotten age, while these scholars chase truths closer to NASA's rockets than to Khufu's stones. Einstein would have wept at their dial-up struggles. The library's a chaos of ideas. Astronomers plot orbits, poets curse their muses, and philosophers bicker over the soul. You feel the heat, the weight of 1,000 minds pushing against time's limits. Cleopatra's no mere queen here. She's the CEO of Antiquity's think tank, her throne tied to this intellectual fire. The moon glowing through a window is only 2,000 years from Armstrong's leap, while the pyramids, 500 years distant, laugh from their desert grave. You smirk. If these scholars had a laptop, they'd have hacked the stars by breakfast. Now picture 1969, Apollo 11's lunar module glinting on a TV screen. These scholars, long dust, would have screamed at the sight their star charts made real, their math soaring to the heavens. You stand in the library, its air heavy with ambition, and feel time's cruel twist. Cleopatra's era, with its ink-stained dreamers, is closer to satellites than to the pyramid's ancient toil. You hear a scholar curse a broken quill, see the moon's light on his scroll, and wonder, did they sense the future's pull, the cosmos they chased? Time's a trickster, burying the library's brilliance in sand while the moon landing looms near. You touch a scroll, its edges crumbling, and feel the weight of Cleopatra's world, vibrant, fleeting, closer to rockets than to Giza's stones. The pyramids don't care. They've watched minds flicker and fade. You laugh, imagining these scholars gawking at a lunar feed, their papyrus dreams outrun by NASA's fire. Share your weirdest fact. Does it twist history's timeline like this? You stand in Giza's shadow, 35 BCE, the Great Pyramid looming like a mountain carved by forgotten hands. The air is thick with sand and heat, the Nile's distant shimmer a faint tease of life. Cleopatra's Alexandria thrives miles away, her court a whirl of silken schemes, but here the pyramids stand silent, their stones heavy as time's cruel joke. They're 500 years old ancient even in her day, yet her world vibrant scheming is closer to the 1969 moon landing than to these tombs' birth in 2550 BCE. History's a trickster, and you're caught in its gritty snare. The pyramid's limestone, once polished to a blinding gleam, is weathered now, its edges dulled by centuries of wind. You trace a finger along a crack, feeling the weight of millennia, Khufu's labourers, their backs broken, their chants lost to dust. These stones were old when Cleopatra seduced Caesar, their chambers plundered or sealed their purpose half myth. You squint at the Sphinx, its gaze mocking your fleeting steps. Time's playing dirty, her reign with its incense and intrigue is a mere 2,000 years from Armstrong's lunar stroll, while these pyramids scoff at your mortal blink. You feel the desert's pulse, the sand stinging your skin like a whisper from the past. Cleopatra might have passed here, her chariot rattling her eyes on Rome's power, not these ancient ghosts. The pyramids don't care they've watched pharaohs, Greeks and Romans fade their silence louder than her court's clamour. You smirk. If she'd had Twitter, she'd have posted this hulking relic with #old news, unaware her world's closer to rockets than to these stones' birth. The moon's glow above feels like a taunt tying her to a future she'll never see. Flash to 1969. You're hunched over a TV Apollo 11's feed, flickering as humanity steps onto the moon. These pyramids, still squatting in Giza, are 500 years old ancient, when Cleopatra ruled ancient now as rockets soar. You imagine her gazing at these stones, their weight a reminder of her fleeting reign. The Nile flows, Alexandria hums, but the pyramids endure their silence, a cosmic laugh at time's warped mirror. You taste the desert's grit, feel its heat and wonder. Did she sense the stars pull the future closer than her past? Time's a cruel overseer. You stand before the pyramid, its shadow swallowing you, and feel history's vertigo. Cleopatra's era, with its plots and papyrus, is a bridge to lunar dust, not these ancient tombs. The stones don't flinch. They've seen empires bleed out. You laugh, imagining her scoffing at their silence, her ambition outshone by rockets' fire. Like Cher, tell us what ancient relic twists your sense of time like this. You're glued to a TV July 20, 1969, the room buzzing with static and awe. Apollo 11's lunar module touches down, Neil Armstrong's voice crackling. One small step for man. The moon's grey dust swirls under his boot, a triumph carved from math and fire. Now here's the mind bend, this moment. This cosmic leap is closer to Cleopatra's reign in 30 BCE than her world was to the Great Pyramid's rise in 2550 BCE. Time's a cosmic jester, and you're watching its greatest trick unfold. You imagine Cleopatra, her coal-lined eyes fixed on the stars, standing in Alexandria's glow. Her scholars, scribbling in the great library, chased the moon with papyrus and dreams, unaware their work was a whisper of this 1969 triumph. You feel the weight of her era incense intrigue the Nile's muddy pulse, only 2,000 years from this lunar landing. The pyramids, 500 years old, squat in Giza, their stones silent when she ruled, silent now as rockets pierce the sky. You smirk. If she'd seen this, she'd have demanded a seat on Apollo Nav Moon Queen trending. The TV flickers astronauts bouncing in low gravity, their suits gleaming like modern armour. You're back in Alexandria, 40 BCE, the pharaoh's lighthouse burning its flame, a pale rival to the stars. Cleopatra's astronomers, funded by her gold-mapped orbits, with tools cruder than a slide rule. Their dreams, though, echo here. NASA's clean rooms, engineers plotting trajectories, all rooted in her library's ink-stained ambition. The pyramids, their ancient ghosts, 500 years old in her day, mocking her fleeting reign and this lunar leap. You feel the vertigo of time's warp. Cleopatra's world, with its plots and papyrus, is closer to this grainy feed than to the pyramid's birth. You picture her on a balcony, the moon silver above, unaware it's a mere 2,000 years from humanity's bootprint. The Nile flows, the desert sands shift, but the pyramids endure their silence, a cosmic snub to her and Armstrong alike. You laugh. Her scholars would have lost it seeing their starry math made real, a rocket outrunning Ra's chariot. This is history's sleight of hand. You're in 1969, the moon's glow on your screen, but Cleopatra's ghost lingers applauding from Alexandria's shadows. Her era, vibrant and doomed, ties to this triumph, while the pyramids, eternal and smug, watch from their desert perch. You taste the thrill of the lunar landing, feel time's dizzying twist and wonder. Did she dream of stars her world would one day touch? Share your creepiest fact. Does it bend time like this? You're in Cleopatra's palace, 44 BCE, the air thick with myrrh and menace. The queen, draped in silk that shimmers like the Nile at dusk, locks eyes with a Roman envoy across a table heavy with gold. You hear the clink of wine cups, the low hiss of a coiled asp in a shadow corner, and feel the tension her throne's a house of cards, one wrong word from collapse. Here's the mind bend. This world of whispered plots and gilded daggers is closer to the 1969 moon landing than to the Great Pyramid's rise in 2550 BCE. Time's a snake slithering through history's cracks. You lean closer, catching Cleopatra's voice sharp as a blade, weaving charm into every syllable. She's no mere queen, she's a strategist playing Rome's generals like pawns in a game where losing means death. You taste the wine, its tang laced with the threat of poison. One sip could end you. Alexandria hums outside its markets, alive with Greek curses and Egyptian prayers, but here power's the only currency. The pyramids 2,500 years old squat in Giza's sands, relics of a world she barely knows, while the moon, 2,000 years from Armstrong's step, feels closer than her ancient past. Cleopatra's court is a chessboard of intrigue. You see her smile at Mark Antony, her eyes glinting with calculation, each gesture a move to bind Rome to her will. The Nile's pulse feeds her empire, but Rome's legions loom their boots a heartbeat away. You smirk. If she'd had a smartphone, she'd have DM'd Antony with power couple. Her plots trending faster than gossip. The pyramids ancient and smug don't care about her schemes, they've watched empires crumble. Yet her world, this den of silk and suspicion, is nearer to NASA's rockets than to those dusty stones. Flash to 1969. You're staring at a TV Apollo 11's feed, flickering as humanity touches the moon. Cleopatra's court, long dust, was a mere 2,000 years from this leap, while the pyramids, 400-500 years old, mock both her and the astronauts. You imagine her sipping wine, unaware her intrigues are a bridge to lunar dust, not Giza's tombs. The palace's incense lingers in your throat, its plots as fleeting as her reign, yet closer to rockets than to Khufu's labourers. You laugh. She'd have charmed mission control for a lunar selfie, her ambition outshining the stars. Time's a cruel dealer. You stand in her court, the air heavy with betrayal, and feel history's vertigo. Cleopatra's world, vibrant, treacherous, is a thread to the space age, not the pyramid's ancient grind. The stones don't flinch. They've seen queens and empires bleed out. You hear the asps hiss, feel her gaze, and wonder, did she sense time's mockery, her plots closer to lunar fire than to Egypt's oldest ghosts? Like Cher, tell us what historical scheme twists your mind like this. You're in Giza, 40 BCE, the desert wind howling like a chorus of forgotten gods. The Great Pyramid looms, its weathered stones heavy with 2,500 years of silence, while Cleopatra's Alexandria glitters miles away. You squint against the sand, its sting sharp as time's bite, and feel the Sphinx's gaze, cold eternal, mocking your brief existence. Here's the twist that burns her world of schemes, and Sales is closer to the 1969 moon landing than to these pyramids' birth in 2550 BCE. Time's a desert storm, burying history in its gritty jest. The pyramids stand like sentinels, their limestone cracked but unyielding, older than Cleopatra's entire world. You touch a stone, its surface warm from the sun, and imagine the labourers, thousands, their bones dust, their sweat soaked into these blocks. By her time, these tombs are myths, their chambers plundered or sealed, their pharaohs' names half lost. You hear the wind's low moan, feel the desert's weight and smirk. If Cleopatra saw this, she'd have tweeted, ancient vibes, unaware her reign's closer to rockets than to these stones grind. You picture her chariot passing her eyes on Rome, not these relics. The pyramids don't care, they've watched dynasties fade their silence louder than her court's clamour. You stand in their shadow, the sand gritty in your throat, and feel time's cruel math. 2,000 years to Apollo 11's lunar dust. 2,500 to the pyramid's birth. The moon glows above a taunt, tying her vibrant era to a future of fire and steel, not these ancient ghosts. You laugh. She'd have scoffed at their stillness, her ambition burning brighter than their faded glory. Flash to 1969. You're watching Apollo 11's grainy feed astronauts bouncing on the moon's grey face. The pyramids, 500 years old, still squat in Giza, their silence a cosmic snub to Cleopatra and NASA alike. You imagine her glancing at these stones, unaware her world, its plots, its Nile-fed life, is closer to this lunar leap than to Khufu's toil. The desert's heat presses you, the Sphinx's stare unyielding, and you wonder, did she feel time's mockery, her reign, a flicker against these eternal watchers? Time's a relentless overseer. You stand in Giza, the pyramid's shadow swallowing you, and feel history's dizzying warp. Cleopatra's era with its incense and intrigue is a bridge to lunar dust, not these ancient tombs. The stones don't flinch, they have seen empires bleed out. You taste the sand, hear the winds wail and laugh. History's a trickster, tying her to astronauts, not pharaohs. Share your creepiest fact. Does it bend time like this? You're in the heart of Alexandria, the 40 BCE, the great library's marble halls humming with the scratch of quills and the murmur of minds chasing the stars. The air is thick with papyrus dust and ambition scholars hunched over scrolls, their star charts glowing faintly under lamplight. Cleopatra the Queen, bankrolling this ancient nerd fest, fuels a cosmic hunger that rivals modern observatories. Here's the twist that spins your head. This hub of starry-eyed dreamers is closer to the 1969 moon landing than to the Great Pyramid's rise in 2550 BCE. Time's a cosmic scroll unravelling history's secrets. You dodge a Greek astronomer, his fingers smudged with ink, muttering about the moon's orbit. This is the ancient world's Hubble, think NASA, but with sandals and no coffee breaks. Cleopatra's gold keeps the library alive, its shelves stuffed with math and mysticism, a proto-Google for the Hellenistic age. You smell the musty parchment, hear the clatter of abacuses, and feel the pulse of ideas that dream of touching the heavens. The pyramids, 200 to 500 years old, squat in Giza's sands, relics of a forgotten era, while these scholars are closer to Apollo's fire than to Khufu's stones. The library's a cauldron of ambition. You watch an Egyptian scribe sketch constellations, his eyes alight with visions of Ra's chariot. Cleopatra's not just a queen, she's the patron of this starry gamble, her throne tied to minds that map the cosmos. You smirk. If she'd had a telescope, she'd have beaten NASA to the moon, tweeting #starry vibes. The pyramids, ancient and smug, don't care they've watched dreams crumble. Yet this vibrant hub, its scrolls, whispering of orbits, is only 2,000 years from Armstrong's lunar dust, a cosmic taunt to their silence. Flash to 1969. You're glued to a TV Apollo 11's feed, crackling as a humanity steps onto the moon. These scholars long dust would have wept, their papyrus charts reborn in rocket trajectories. You stand in the library, its air heavy with ambition, and feel time's dizzying jest. Cleopatra's era with its ink-stained dreamers is closer to satellites than to the pyramid's ancient grind. You hear a scholar curse a smudged scroll, see the moon's glow through a window, and wonder, did they sense the stars pull the future their math would touch? Time's a relentless scribe. You touch a crumbling scroll, feel the weight of Alexandria's dreams, and laugh history's a cosmic prank tying Cleopatra's starry ambition to lunar fire, not Giza's stones. The pyramids endure silent and smug, while the library's ideas burn bright closer to 1969 than to 2550 BCE. You taste the dust, hear the scholars' whispers, and imagine Cleopatra cheering Apollo's leap. Like Cher, tell us what ancient dream twists your sense of time like this. You're on a rooftop in Alexandria, 35 BCE, the moon hanging low, its silver light bathing the Nile's glassy ripple. Cleopatra stands nearby, her silhouette sharp against the night, her gaze lost in the stars. The air carries the scent of jasmine and the faint chant of priests, but there's a chiller whisper of the cosmos, like the gods themselves are watching. Here's the gut twist, her world, this starry-eyed moment, is closer to Apollo 11's 1969 lunar landing than to the Great Pyramid's rise in 2550 BCE. Time's a celestial jester winking from the heavens. You feel the night's weight, the moon's glow, casting shadows that dance like Egypt's ancient myths. Cleopatra, queen and dreamer, might have pondered the stars, her library scholars scribbling orbits on papyrus. You hear their murmurs, Greek theories, Egyptian tales of Newt's starry veil chasing truths beyond their grasp. The moon's closer than you think, 2,000 years to Armstrong's boot print, 500 to the pyramid's stones. You smirk. If she'd had a rocket, she'd have raced to the moon, posting cosmic queen, her ambition outshining the gods. Alexandria hums below ships. Creek the Pharaoh's lighthouse burns like a rival star. You imagine Cleopatra, her mind a maze of power and prophecy, sensing the moon's pull. The pyramids, ancient even now, squat in Giza, their silence mocking her fleeting reign. You taste the Nile's silt, feel the breeze like a warning from Anubis, and laugh her world with its incense, and intrigue is closer to lunar modules than to those dusty tombs. The moon winks a distant call she'll never answer, yet nearer than her ancient past. Flash to 1969. You're watching Apollo 11's grainy feed, astronauts bouncing on the moon's grey face. Cleopatra's scholars long gone would have screamed their starry dreams made real, their math soaring past the gods. You stand on this rooftop, the moon's light cold on your skin, and feel time's cruel twist. Her era, vibrant and doomed, is a mere 2,000 years from this leap, while the pyramids, 500 years old, scoff from their desert perch. You hear the priest chant, see the moon's glow, and wonder, did she feel the stars call the future closer than her past? Time's a cosmic riddle. You lean against the rooftop's edge, the Nile's ripple a steady pulse, and feel history's vertigo. Cleopatra's world with its starry ambition is a bridge to lunar dust, not Giza's stones. The pyramids don't flinch, they've seen queens fade. You laugh, imagining her gazing at the moon, unaware it's closer than her ancient tombs. Share your weirdest fact. Does it bend time like this? You're ankle deep in the Nile's muddy shallows, 40 BCEE, the river's stench a mix of silt and decay. Alexandria's bustle fades behind you, merchants shouting, carts rattling, while here fishermen curse tangled nets, and farmers slog through muck. The sun burns your skin, the air thick with flies, and the Nile's relentless pulse. Here's the kicker that twists your gut. This gritty, sweaty world tied to Cleopatra's reign is closer to the 1969 moon landing than to the Great Pyramid's rise in 2550 BCE. Time's a muddy trickster dragging you through its slimy jest. The Nile's no romantic stream, it's Egypt's lifeline, cruel and vital. You watch a woman haul water, her jar heavy as her prayers, to happy for a good flood. No plumbing, no filters, just the river's gritty gift, feeding Cleopatra's empire while she schemes in her palace. The pyramids, 500 years old, loom in Giza's sands, ancient relics. Even now their stones silent as this river churns. You smirk. If Cleopatra had TikTok, she'd film this muck with Nile life, unaware her world's closer to rockets than to Khufu's dusty tombs. You feel the river's tug its current, a steady heartbeat under the chaos. Fishermen shout their nets heavy with fish and filth, while priests chant to gods who don't answer. Cleopatra's grain ships sail this water to Rome, her power tied to this muddy flow. You taste the silt gritty as regret and laugh her era, with its sweat and survival, is only 2,000 years from Armstrong's lunar stroll, while the pyramids, 500 years distant, mock your fleeting steps. The moon glows above a cosmic taunt to this river's endless grind. Flash to 1969. You're hunched over a TV, Apollo 11's feed, flickering as humanity steps onto the moon. The Nile still flows, its rhythm unchanged since Cleopatra's day, feeding Egypt while rockets pierce the sky. You imagine her standing here, her gold jewellery glinting, unaware her river's closer to lunar dust than to Giza's stones. The fishermen, the farmers, they lived in a world of mud and gods, yet their time feels like yesterday compared to the pyramid's birth. You laugh, history's a sloppy catfish slipping through time's net. Time's a relentless current. You stand in the Nile's muck, flies buzzing, and feel history's vertigo. Cleopatra's world, with its gritty reality, is a bridge to the space age. Not those ancient tombs. The pyramids don't care they've watched empires drown. You taste the river's tang, hear its laps, and wonder, did she sense the future's pull, the stars her scholars chased? Like Cher, tell us what historical grime twists your mind like this. You're in Alexandria's great library, 40 BCE, surrounded by scrolls that hum with ancient cosmology. Tales of Ra's chariot blazing across the sky. The air's thick with ink and ambition scholars scribbling theories of stars and gods under Cleopatra's patronage. You hear the rustle of papyrus, smell the musty weight of ideas, and feel the pulse of a world chasing the heavens. Here's the twist that burns this era. With its mythic math is closer to Apollo 11's 1969 lunar landing than to the Great Pyramid's rise in 2550 BCE. Time's a cosmic gambler and you're caught in its starry bet. You watch an astronomer sketch the moon's path, his quill trembling with visions of Nut's starry veil. These are Egypt's stargazers. They're gods riding celestial barges, yet their math lays tracks for future rockets. Cleopatra's gold fuels this cosmic hunger, her library a proto-NASA with no launch pad. You smirk Ra's chariot versus Apollo's tin can. No contest, but her world's only 2,000 years from lunar dust. While the pyramids, 400-500 years old, squat in Giza's sands, silent relics of a forgotten age. You laugh. If she'd had a SpaceX account, she'd have crowdfunded a moonshot. The library's a furnace of ideas. Greek geometry, Egyptian myths, all wrestling with the stars. You feel the heat, hear a scholar curse a misdrawn orbit, and imagine Cleopatra nodding her coal-lined eyes on the heavens. The pyramids ancient even now don't care, they've watched gods and pharaohs fade. You taste the dust of scrolls, feel the weight of dreams that stretch toward a future of fire and steel. The moon's glow through a window taunts you closer to 1969 than to Khufu's stones, a cosmic jab at history's math. Flash to 1969. You're glued to a TV Apollo 11's feed crackling as Armstrong's boot sinks into lunar dust. Cleopatra's scholars, long dust themselves, would have screamed their starry myths made real, their math soaring past Ra's chariot. You stand in the library, its air heavy with ambition, and feel time's cruel twist. Her era with its papyrus cosmology is a mere 2,000 years from this leap, while the pyramids, 400-500 years distant, scoff from their desert perch. You laugh. History's a rocket blasting Cleopatra's dreams closer to the moon than to Giza's tombs. Time's a cosmic prankster. You touch a scroll, its edges crumbling, and feel the pulse of Alexandria's starry hunger. Cleopatra's world with its gods and math is a bridge to lunar fire, not those ancient stones. The pyramids endure silent and smug, while her scholars' dreams burn bright closer to NASA than to 2550 BCE. You hear Ra's chariot rumble, see Apollo's flame, and wonder did she sense the stars' call, the future her library chased. Share your weirdest fact as it soar through time like this. You're in Cleopatra's palace. 30 BCE, the air heavy with defeat and jasmine. The queen, her silk robes trailing like shadows, clutches a basket where an asp slithers its hiss sharp as Rome's closing grip. You hear the distant clamour of Octavian's legions, their boots trampling her empire's last breath. Here's the gut punch. This moment, her final stand is closer to the 1969 moon landing than to the Great Pyramid's rise in 2550 BCE. Time's a venomous trickster and you're caught in its fatal coil. You stand frozen watching Cleopatra's coal-lined eyes, defiant yet weary as she faces Rome's noose. The Nile laps outside its muddy pulse, a fading heartbeat, while Alexandria's vibrancy crumbles under betrayal. You taste the wine on her table, its tang bitter with the threat of poison. She's one bite from eternity. The pyramids. 500 years old, squat in Giza's sands, ancient relics, even now their silence mocking her fleeting reign. You smirk. If she'd had Wi-Fi, she'd have tweeted, "Last stand, her defiance closer to lunar dust than to Khufu's stones. The palace feels like a tomb already." You hear whispers of her allies' desertion and see the glint of gold that couldn't buy Rome's mercy. Cleopatra's no mere queen, she's a gambler who bet her empire on Antony and lost. The asp's scales glint, a cold promise of control in a world slipping away. You feel the air's weight, the incense choking your throat, and laugh. Her final act, this deadly dance, is only 2,000 years from Armstrong's lunar step, while the pyramids, 400-500 years distant, scoff at her mortal struggle. Flash to 1969. You're glued to a TV Apollo 11's feed, crackling as humanity touches the moon. Cleopatra's stand, her asp's bite, is dust now, yet closer to this cosmic leap than to Giza's ancient tombs. You imagine her clutching that serpent, unaware her world, its plots. Its passion is a bridge to lunar fire, not those silent stones. The Nile flows, the desert sands shift, but her defiance echoes in NASA's audacity. You laugh she'd have charmed Mission Control, her final stand outshining the god's starry gaze. Time's a merciless conqueror. You stand in her palace, the asps hiss, deafening, and feel history's vertigo. Cleopatra's world, vibrant and doomed, ties to the space age. Not the pyramids grind. The stones don't care, they've watched queens bleed out. You taste the fear, see her defiance, and wonder did she sense time's mockery, her end closer to lunar dust than to Egypt's oldest ghosts. Like, share, tell us what historical defiance twists your mind like this. You're in Giza 30 BCE, the Great Pyramid looming like a silent judge, its stones weathered by 500 years of wind and sand. The desert's heat chokes you, the Sphinx's stare cold as time itself, while Cleopatra's Alexandria fights its final battles miles away. You feel the sand sting, hear the wind's low wail, and sense the pyramid's weight eternal, unyielding, mocking all who pass. Here's the twist that burns her world crumbling under Rome's heel, is closer to the 1969 moon landing than to these tombs' rise in 2550 BCE. Time's a cruel overseer and you're caught in its desert glare. The pyramids stand there limestone scarred but defiant, older than Cleopatra's entire world. You touch a stone, its warmth, the pulse of millennia, Khufu's labourers, their screams, long dust built this for eternity. By her time, these tombs are myths, their chambers looted or sealed, their pharaohs' names fading. You squint at the horizon where her city pulses with intrigue and smirk. If she'd seen these stones, she'd have posted "Time sucks," unaware her reign's closer to rockets than to these ancient ghosts. You feel the desert's pulse, the sand grinding underfoot like time's relentless march. Cleopatra's plotting her last stand, her asp ready, while these pyramids watch unmoved. They've seen pharaohs, Greeks and Romans fade their silence louder than her court's desperation. You laugh her world with its silken schemes is only 2,000 years from Armstrong's lunar dust, while these stones, 400-500 years old, scoff at her fleeting fight. The moon glows above a taunt tying her to a future of fire, not these dusty relics. Flash to 1969. You're watching Apollo 11's grainy feed astronauts kicking up lunar dust. The pyramids still squatting in Giza are 400-500 years old ancient, when Cleopatra fell ancient now as rockets soar. You imagine her glancing at these stones, unaware her world, its passion, its defeat is closer to this lunar leap than to Khufu's toil. The desert's heat presses you, the Sphinx's gaze unyielding, and you wonder, did she feel time's mockery? Her reign a flicker against these eternal watchers. Time's a relentless jest. You stand in Giza, the pyramid's shadow swallowing you, and feel history's dizzying warp. Cleopatra's world with its incense and intrigue is a bridge to lunar fire, not these ancient tombs. The stones don't flinch, they've seen empires bleed out. You taste the sand, hear the winds moan and laugh. History's a trickster, tying her to astronauts, not pharaohs. Share your creepiest fact. Does it mock time like this? You're in Alexandria's Great Library 35 BCE, the air heavy with the scent of papyrus and lamp oil. A scholar hunches over a scroll, his quill scratching orbits under Cleopatra's patronage. The moon's glow seeping through a window. You hear the rustle of reeds, feel the grit of sand tracked in from the Nile's banks. Here's the twist that spins your head. This world of ink and starry dreams is closer to the 1969 moon landing than to the Great Pyramid's rise in 2550 BCE. Time's a cosmic scribe blending papyrus with lunar dust in its cruel jest. You touch the scroll, its edges crumbling, and imagine Cleopatra, her coal-lined eyes scanning these same stars. The library's a furnace of ambition. Greek math, Egyptian myths, all chasing the heaven's secrets. You smirk if these scholars had a laptop, they'd have hacked the moon's orbit by lunch, hashtagging starry vibes. The pyramids. 500 years old squat in Giza, silent relics of a forgotten age, while this vibrant hub is only 2,000 years from Armstrong's boots stirring lunar dust. You laugh history's a trickster, tying her ink-stained dreams to a rocket's fire. The moon's light bathes the room, a cold taunt from a future these scholars can't grasp. You hear a scribe mutter about Razbarj, see his star chart crude yet a spark of NASA's math. Cleopatra's gold fuels this cosmic chase, her empire's pulse tied to the Nile's muddy flow. The pyramids don't care, they've watched dreams crumble their stones, 400-500 years old by 1969. You taste the dust, feel the library's heat and wonder, did she sense the stars pull her scrolls closer to lunar modules than to Giza's tombs? Flash to 1969. You're glued to a TV Apollo 11's feed flickering as Armstrong's boot kicks up moon dust. These scholars long gone would have screamed their papyrus dreams made real, their maths soaring past the gods. You stand in the library, its air thick with ambition, and feel time's dizzying warp. Cleopatra's world with its ink and intrigue is a bridge to this lunar leap, not those ancient stones. You laugh. She'd have penned a scroll to Mission Control demanding a lunar cameo, her ambition outshining Ra's glow. Time's a cosmic prank. You stand among the scrolls, the moon's light cold on your skin, and feel history's vertigo. Cleopatra's era, vibrant and fleeting ties to lunar fire, not the pyramid's silent grind. The stones don't flinch, they've seen empires fade. You hear the quills scratch, see the starry charts, and wonder did she dream of a future her scholars' math would touch? Like Cher, tell us what historical spark bends time like this. You're in Alexandria 30 BCE. The Nile's murmur blending with the clatter of Cleopatra's fading court. The air's thick with incense and despair, her empire crumbling under Rome's shadow. You stand on a balcony, the moon glowing like a cosmic taunt, while the Great Pyramid, 500 years old, looms in Giza's sands. Here's the final twist that breaks you Cleopatra's world. Her plots, her starry dreams, is closer to the 1969 moon landing than to the pyramid's rise in 2450 BCE. Time's a dizzying jester, and you're lost in its cruel prank. You feel the weight of her era silk robes, whispered schemes, the Nile's muddy pulse. Cleopatra, queen and dreamer, gazes at the stars, unaware her library's scrolls are a bridge to lunar dust, not Giza's stones. You smirk. If she'd had a smartphone, she'd have snapped the moon with hashtag. Time sucks, her ambition, closer to Apollo's fire than to Khufu's tombs. The pyramids, ancient and smug, don't care they've watched empires bleed out their silence louder than her court's last gasps. The moon's glow bathes Alexandria, tying her to a future of rockets and grainy TVs. You hear the pharaoh's lighthouses flame crackle, see scholars scribbling orbits, their math a whisper of NASA's triumph. The pyramids, 500 years old by 1969, mock her fleeting reign, their stones heavy with time's indifference. You taste the jasmine, feel the breeze like Anubis's breath, and laugh, her world vibrant and doomed, is only 2,000 years from Armstrong's small step, a cosmic jab at history's math. Flash to 1969. You're watching Apollo 11 astronauts bouncing on the moon's grey face. Cleopatra's gone her library dust, yet her era feels like yesterday compared to the pyramid's birth. You imagine her standing here, a defiance outshining the gods, unaware her starry dreams linked to this lunar leap. Time's a relentless trickster, tying her to astronauts, not pharaohs. You feel history's vertigo, the Nile's flow, a steady pulse, and wonder did she sense time's jest, her world closer to lunar fire than to Egypt's oldest ghosts. Time's the ultimate con. You stand in Alexandria, the moon winking, and feel the dizzying truth. Cleopatra's closer to astronauts than to the pyramid's grind. The stones don't flinch, they've seen queens fade. You laugh, imagining her meeting Armstrong, her coal-lined eyes wide at the moon's dust. History's a cosmic prank, and humanity's caught in its starry maze. Like Cher, tell us what facts twists time like this. Now let's shift gears to a modern legend, a story of grit and grace that starts in the heart of struggle. We're in Columbus, Ohio, 1997, where a girl named Simone Biles enters a world that's anything but easy. Her spark, though, is unstoppable, lighting a path from chaos to glory. As you settle in at 5:17 p.m, Sunday, June 27th, 2025, the fans hum a steady beat, picture a kid whose flips would one day flip the world. Loving this tale, Like, subscribe and comment where are you and what's the clock saying. Let's tumble into Simone's story. Imagine a small apartment, the air heavy with uncertainty, where Simone's born to a mom battling addiction. Life's rough foster care bounces her and her siblings through unfamiliar beds, their days a blur of change. You can see a tiny Simone, barely 3, her eyes bright, despite the weight clutching her sister's hand,